around the world, and so on. And it's just time for Sabbath, isn't it? And Sabbath is something that is so important for all of us. A day uh, of the week, but it's a time of pause. And so I wanted to just share this before we have a little quieting time. And this is a Hadassic tale that a rabbi was asked by his pupil how to tell when night and the day had begun. One student said, well, could it be when you can see an animal in the distance and tell whether it's a sheep or a dog? The rabbi said, no. Another said, is it when you can look at a tree in the distance and tell whether it's a fig tree or a peach tree? And the rabbi said, no. Then what is it? They asked. And the rabbi said, it's when you can look on the face of any man or woman and see that it is your sister or brother. Because if you cannot see this, it is still night. So I want to take a few moments for experiencing the light. God. This is our connection with our source. So breathe in freely, joyfully. Breathe in the light, the peace, that which our soul longs for. Breathe it in. And then let it go. Because there's a circulation and a flow that we sense here. Wherever I am, God is. Wherever God is, I am. Where there's only one. And as the reminder, no matter who I look at or hear about, it is my brother, it is my sister, it is a part of me. And so that which we would desire for ourselves, we desire for every man, woman, and child. Allowing our thoughts, our prayers, to be only for the highest and best for each one. Include all those represented by the flags, names here in the prayer chest, and people everywhere. For we are one. We are thankful for our growing and deepening awareness of this truth. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Amen.
All creation you only comprehend, and with wisdom you always answer. Give the words of life so unfailing, and your glory shines all around me. Your truth is here now for all to see. When I think of all of your wonders, beauty of my source, I walk in it, shine bright. Let your glory fill my heart, live high You lift me high, the great I am. Praise you, God. You are the hope and time, and set the captive souls free. Shine bright, let your glory fill this land and lift high. You lift me high, the great I am. I praise you, God. You are the way. You are the way. Shine bright and let your glory fill my heart. You lift me high, you lift me high, the great I am. Shine bright, let your glory fill my heart. You lift God, you are the way, you are the way.
Questions to the center, please. And Usher, Tom, if you would pick them up and get them up here and we can start perhaps. Remember, you're the service this morning, good people. Thank you. And Tom, when you have a few of them, you can just journey up here and then go back and get the rest of them so we can get going with something here. He'll be back to get you in a minute. Thank you, Tom. I got it. Thank you. It's Mary Ellen is she's the sorter.
Am I on? Is this on? Okay. When one's life becomes difficult and every day brings more and more problems or bad news, what suggestion or advice do you recommend to turn our life around and take a more positive outlook?
Well, in all things, we are always self-responsible, aren't we, for where we put our focus in life. And I recognize that if you have, as a habit, if you have centered on the news that comes in and you're always focused on that, I recognize that there is a problem there. It sort of continues the fire of whatever it is that is unhappiness in your life. It feeds it. Number one, I would do, if I were you, and that I would quit the news coming in. You don't need it. And I would start each day with a little ceremony that comes from center to circumference, acknowledging yourself as a spiritual being and moving into your world. And whenever that doesn't work, to just gently bring yourself back into the truth that I am self-responsible for what I see, for what I identify with, and to let that be a self-identification focus that you have as you move through and engage life. That is important. You are self-responsible for how you feel and what you choose to look at. And to look at something that is more positive is your opportunity. Love?
Couple of questions right here. I don't understand the hate and killing going on in our country. And it seems it's on the rise. What's happening? How can we deal with this? Another one, using unity principles when they work in a difficult environment.
I understand what you're saying, and I do not understand either what is necessarily taking place. Although people, there is such a thing as self-consciousness, and then there is such a thing as race consciousness. And that has nothing to do with race as far as white, black, brown, but the race of humankind within our nation. There is a race consciousness that is there that can be something that people feed upon. So that means then that people who are sort of on the edge right now because they are not overly self-respective to the good that they truly are going to pick up on things like that. And so your responsibility and mine is to feed into race consciousness the things that we spoke to in the first question and answer. and that is to come from center to circumference and make sure that as far as you are able to do it on an ongoing progressive way, that you are part of the solution and not the problem, which means you don't buy into and you don't verbalize and you don't continue to go over the things that you think are so hateful in the world, be it in politics or be it something else. Dear friends, you realize that's feeding into the race consciousness as you and I do things like that, that we dislike and distrust and we verbalize. Don't do it. Verbalize the truth. Verbalize who and what you truly say and believe you are. And that is your contribution to feeding into race consciousness, something that is beautiful and good. That is your responsibility and mine.
What about the sacrament of marriage? Is it time to stop saying till death do us part?
I've never said it. Next.
If the universe is about love, why were animals created with the need to create pain and suffering by feeding on each other?
I've had that question in my own life. I really have. And I've not come to a good solution within my own life at this point in time. I know that there is a race consciousness that feeds and supports all life, be it the animal kingdom or us, and certainly that which we cannot see. And what does that have to do with the animals and what is taking place in their ongoingness? Folks, I don't know. I don't know. I've had that question. And so I probably will continue to just simply seek that out within my own self. And I would say within you is the right answer as well. That I can't solve for you. I'm trying to solve it for myself.
Do you believe every word of the Bible is correct? What is your view on agnosticism and atheism? And what would you say to a suicidal atheist? Which I'm assuming there's someone
Well, we'll be
here.
here now for the next,
Yeah.
the couple of hours. Let me just as quickly as I can say this: the Bible. I mean, you obviously haven't been here for a little while because that question would have been answered. And I'm not saying you're wrong for not being here, but in Unity, you've heard us approach this many times. The Bible is not the literal Word of God. The Bible is the consciousness of the writer at that point in time and their understanding of who, what, when, and where. And they put it in script, and they put it in poetry, and they put it in the different things that we find. This is especially true in the Old Testament. In the New Testament, it was written, you realize, about at least 50 to 60 to 70 years after the crucifixion. And so how accurate is that, folks? It's as accurate as it could be, but recognize that if you read something in the Bible and you are automatically recognizing that there is something here that isn't right because of how you feel, it can't be that way. Just skip over it. It probably isn't the right thing in the Bible anyway in the first place. And you know where you have your own best Bible? Within your own heart and mind. Go there. There's the answers. The Bible can be an ancillary part of support if you want it to be, and there's nothing wrong with that. But recognize that you also have access to that same truth within you. The most accurate words we have in the Bible are the words of Paul. And you know, Paul went through a series of growth. And so many people quote Paul from his first words, from his first writings, from his first letters, when he was all kinds of phobic. And they then take that in as this is the gospel of how we have to be because it's in the Bible. Well, nonsense. You know, that just isn't the truth. Recognize that even Paul was growing. So in you is the truth. And all the other questions, dear friend, I would be very happy. It's sometime we continue with phone number to be available to you. But I've got to move through some of these right now.
No,
so
we
let's
have a
go.
lot of questions without the
Yeah.
answers, so we'll have to figure this
Okay.
out. I have a minor but lifelong illness that will not go away, can only be treated for comfort. I struggle with thinking that I created or attracted this to myself, according to the law of attraction.
Don't go there. That may be true, but it's not feeding anything in you that's good and great. Continue to hold to the truth that you want to be a part of your consciousness that you take with you. You realize that that is what is the carryover that you take with you when you make your transition from this three-dimensional environment. You take with you consciousness. And that consciousness, continue to feed into it the truth. Continue to feed into it the one presence, one power, the life experience and focus of goodness. Take that, and if you can, step away from, as far as you can, the experience that you are in the process of simply dealing with, and finding as much comfort as you can with as much help as you can. Give thanks that that is there. There would be a time not that long ago when that wouldn't have been there. So move forward with who and what you are, and don't try and screw yourself into the ground sideways with, why did I do this? Don't go there. You don't need it.
As spiritual beings living a human experience, why did I agree to return with no memory? Couldn't this world be a more wonderful place had we all returned with a little memory?
There is probably some of that you wouldn't want to remember. Trust the process. There is one. Trust the process. Recognize that you will know everything you want to need to know that you are not right now tapping into when you move into a different dimension. Jesus called it of our Father's house. All answers will be there and readily accessible. So again, there's a process at work. It's always been that way. Trust it. You are in your right place at your right time always. And in that experience, there is good.
Stranded on a desert island and you can only take one spiritual book, what would it be?
My wife.
Oh, brother. Let's see here. There you go. Got me up. Do you believe there are lost souls that don't transition?
No. Never. Never. No. No, no, no. No, there are people that are doing things that you may not have chosen to do in this dimension right now out there, but they are not lost, no more than you are. Why do they? Why are they? I do not know the answer to that. But I know that if you continue to do what you do in the truth, focusing in your own life, that you can loose and let go. And there's only one person that you need to ask that about, and that's your own self. You don't need to stir around in anybody else's life and wonder who, what, when, and where, unless you want to draw that consciousness into who and what you are. Don't go there. Just stay with who you are.
When in a state of physical discomfort, pain, emotional irritability, or other negative states, what is a recommended way to develop the experience of gratitude and peace and joyfulness?
Number one, choose to. You can't do anything until you make that initial choice. I choose to not stay focused in what gives me the emotional feedback that doesn't feel good. That is one thing that has been implanted within us. We have our own internal rules and regulations that benefit us, and one of them says, if it doesn't feel good, listen to it. That's your own inner higher self saying, don't go there. Don't focus on that. Don't continue to feed that with conversation, or don't feed that with something that you just choose to stir around in all the time. Stir around in who you are, and that's your God self, your good self.
Do you believe everybody has a guardian angel?
That's a nice thought, isn't it? And I don't say that with any humor necessarily attached to it. I don't doubt that that is goodly possible. I know that there are probably a cadre of all kinds of wonderful God spiritual beings, not in this dimension, who are sort of at your beck and call. If you would ask, if you would be receptive to it, and let that influence you as much as possible.
Were the commandments of Jesus referred to in the Gospel of John different from the commandments in the Hebrew scriptures?
What was that again? I don't.
The commandments
Right.
that Jesus referred to, are they different than
I'm not sure how to answer that question.
I'll answer it.
You answer it, okay. Because after all, you're my book. Go
I
ahead.
know, my book. Well, Jesus said, you have heard it said of old, but I say to you. So you
Oh.
notice there is perhaps another view of the scripture, not the hard and fast law, but he brought it into consciousness in thoughts and feelings.
Yeah, okay. Okay,
So
that's probably
whatever.
then
What
quoting.
else do you want to say?
That's perfect. Okay, that's
We're going to
quoting.
take this on the road, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You go, girl.
Why do we use the word error in the Lord's Prayer in the traditional version, but still use evil in the Finlandia version? Well, let's just change that. Yeah, we'll just change it. There, see? Got that fixed. Okay. Living in the moment. I have trouble living in the moment. I think about the past. I worry about the future. I want to enjoy the moment.
I appreciate that as much as this moment can allow me to appreciate it, which means I am hopefully doing what I want to do, and that is to over and over again, when something comes into my consciousness, when it flies across the screen of my radar of the past, I more quickly say, well, in essence, because if I can draw humor into it, it's better. I say, well, isn't that special? Thank you for sharing. I really don't need you right now because I am here in this place right now. And the future, you know you can't go there. So you just remind yourself of that each moment when you are trying so desperately to go there and worry about it. You are in your right, I am in my right place at my right moment, at my right time right now, and I'm not going to mess around with anything that comes into my life that I do not have direct contact or the ability to change. Now is the only time I have.
And don't believe anything you think at night. Because it's, when you're awake at night, don't believe any of that stuff. What about reincarnation?
To me, that's a word that simply means the ability to come back into physical embodiment, to be a part of the unfolding journey of race consciousness here within this dimension. And of course, it is logical. Uh, there isn't one bone in my body, one thought in my mind that sees the logic in we came from nothing and we will go to nowhere, you know? That just doesn't make any sense to me. You have been around in this dimension many times. And if that doesn't fit your mind right now, then just put it on a shelf somewhere. And in the right and perfect moment after you make your transition, you'll understand all this and you will make another decision to come in and enter and explore and be a part of.
Why don't we help the homeless, have a soup kitchen, women's shelter, etc.?
How much are you willing to volunteer of your time to do that? It takes volunteers. It takes a whole bunch of cadre of things. And we do support an organization in town that does that. We do support them with money. We are not set up to do that in this ministry, but we do support people who are set up to do it. Sometimes it's nice to say, why don't you do that? And then just sort of sit back and make it our responsibility. Well, if you have that feeling within you, it's your responsibility too. So step up to the plate. Do something about it. Offer, ask.
See, we don't have anything to lose to just tell you like it is today. How can we as a congregation, or what can we as a congregation do about this horrendous gun violence in our country?
Well, we've talked about that, haven't we, this morning already? We just simply hold to the truth of who and what we are, and what you choose to be. I don't think that anybody here is going to go out and buy an AK and come in this church and shoot us up, right?
We hope not.
Nobody here has that desire to do, I trust. And if you do, please make the first shot count, because I don't want to hurt, all right? But I don't think so. Let's just stay centered in who and what we are.
And unity and new thought. Explain that, and what would be the impact on our congregation if we accepted a new thought minister? meaning rather than a unity credentialed, I guess.
Oh, we're open. They are open to anybody that fits the criteria of New Thought thinking. New Thought covers a lot of different religious experiences, from religious science, from science of mind, from design science to unity, all credentialed and all on the same path with maybe a little different vocabulary, maybe a little different focus, but still there and still open and receptive to marvelous things.
Now, the other questions here, I'm not sure if you want to get into them.
Well, how do I know until you tell me what they are?
Go for it.
Well, time is of an essence. I'm going
Do
to
you
take
want to
about 5 more
stay?
minutes.
Do you want to stay for questions? All right.
Well, quickly.
Does the congregation know the letter of intent for Reverend Doug was not fully disclosed to all the board of directors?
No, that's not out there, Norm. But you know what I would suggest? Next Sunday, coffee with the board. Go talk. Go ask. Next Sunday, coffee with the board after church. Ask them that question.
So we have few
Yeah.
questions along that line.
Yeah.
With both of you leaving, does the board of directors know the administrative duties to keep the church operating?
I hope so. Not completely, um, but a lot of this will be discovered as things unfold. It's an interesting time right here for this ministry. It is, yes.
Why do we not have Reverend Badoff for our new minister? I thought the congregation was very receptive of him.
I thought so too. Um, there are circumstances that took place that created an environment for his coming here that the only thing he could do as an intelligent unity minister is say, I withdraw. Um, Next Sunday, board meeting with coffee after church. Stay and ask.
For 53 years, you successfully built up and led this organization. Now we are in transition. Hopefully you are leading and guiding us, though. Please, what is going on behind the scenes?
Next Sunday, board,
Talk to
coffee.
your board.
Really, seriously. Next Sunday, board with the coffee. Um, um, we, there are times, speaking just as honestly as I can, there are speaking times that our 53 years wasn't listened to. It wasn't a part of decision making. And Mary Ellen and I have definite feelings about that. Next Sunday, after church, meet with the board, ask them. I'm done.
So Larry and I are very transparent. If you will have a question at any time, feel free to ask us. This church we have to abide by the bylaws. This is a corporation. We have to abide by the bylaws. We are still members of this church, so we don't have any extra vote other than the same kind of vote you have as members. So we love this church. We love every tree, every boulder. We know them all. Many of them we planted. So you can be sure our hearts are here. Our hearts are always here. And when there is something that is painful to one of you that's going on in this place, of course, it's painful to us. But there's only so much that we can do. I hope you understand that, But see your board. Let them know what you want. Let them know what you're feeling. And, let your vote be known. So I hope you understand. Okay. So our tithes and offerings, I'm going to encourage you to step up to the plate. This is your church. This is your ministry. And if you can do more than you're doing about that, so that the expenses of the church can be our spiritual home. And Larry and I will be doing it too, you can be sure. All right, I invite you to join me. This and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. I thankfully acknowledge God as my source. Thank you.
Nothing can separate, nothing can take away. Your love never fails. This love is complete and whole, so perfect, so ages. Your love never changes. There is power in the love and joy in the flow. And when the oceans rage, I don't have to be afraid, because I know love's eternal. Your love never fails. The wind is strong, the water's deep. I'm not alone. No chasm is far too wide. I know I'll always reach the other side. Your love never fails. And you stay the same through the age, joy in the flow. And when the oceans rage, I don't have to be afraid, because I know love's eternal. Together for my good, you make all things work together for my good. You make all things work together for my good. You make all things work together for my changes. There is power in the love and joy in the flow. And when the oceans rage, I don't have to be afraid, because I know love's eternal. Your love never fails. Your love never fails. Thank you.
Ellen reminded me a moment ago, for you, those of you who are here for the first time, and you picked up on something as far as the church. This is not who we are. This is not who we are. We are a house of love and support, and know that. And let's speak our word of blessing together. Divine love. Yes, amen. Amen. Please stand, and let's join as we touch somebody this moment, as we acknowledge peace within our world. We're knowing peace. We're sending that blessing forth. Know that within ourselves and within the world. Would you join with me together? Divine love indwells each person and radiates from one to another. Harmony is established.
There is peace on earth, for it has begun with me. Now there is peace on earth, a peace that was meant to be. With God as creator, family all are we. Now we walk with each other in perfect harmony. Peace has begun with me, and this is the moment now. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Thank you, God, for peace on earth, for it has begun with me.
Oh, that was pretty. Join with me together. The light of God surrounds me, and I am that light. The love of God enfolds me. I am that love. The power of God protects me. I am that power. The presence of God watches over me. I am that presence. Wherever I am, God is. And wherever God is, I am. And all is well. Go in peace and joy.